Yeah.
We're starting, and I'm asking you, what is it that sustains you?
Absolute trust that there is a motive force in matter that is moving relentlessly toward unfolding and becoming, that matter itself is divine. And I don't think of divine as a God with consciousness that sees me. Let me just speak about my thought about when people talk about a God that knows everything that I do and is judging. That's just like a projection of one's prefrontal lobes that's looking at the self, and then a God that is more like a despot or an emperor, which is the way people think about, leaders. Oh, you're talking to somebody over there. So anyway, so when I talk about God, I never think of a person or someone who speaks or thinks or has senses like a human being, but a process of enormous immensity that is the Big Bang, but has a directionality that is still becoming. Because when I think of God, I think of the world, it's a imperfect place. So I don't think of God as perfection. And that's a lovely thought. It just sustains me if you want to think that way, that I don't have to move toward perfection, that there's no such thing as perfection if you look at the universe, and that every bit of matter within me has divinity. And I won't say spirituality, because spirituality is anti-matter. There's a dualism, matter and spirit, which is, to me, absolute nonsense. That matter is divine, and matter relates. When you look at the complexity of matter, not only on the molecular and the quantum level and the cosmological and galactic level, but the incredible complexity, and all of it is relating to something else, all these different forces. And when you look at molecular and cellular matter, complexity of everything that's living, that there's something innate, that matter itself somehow interacts, and there may be some level of consciousness in matter itself that is so beyond my own personal consciousness. And to know that that stuff is living in me. I'm now somehow the organized result of billions of cells, trillions of neurological connections, and bacteria, and all kinds of things that are running, and all of that is that I'm not conscious of any of that. I haven't put all this stuff together. That stuff made me, and so I trust that even when my own brain feels I don't know what the F is going on, this stuff is still living, and it knows more about living than I could possibly know. But then to know that there's something in me that wants to make let me tell you the sentence I use in the beginning of every lecture I do. When I say, what is life all about? I say, we are made to be able to be happy in an imperfect world that's endlessly unfolding, and we human beings are the local agents of that divine unfolding. So that my personal becoming, let alone sustaining, is part of this cosmological thing. We all have that thrust in us. Some of us live it, and some of us don't come in touch with it at all. Mm-hmm. But every one of us is made of that divine matter. And I like talking about matter when I'm sorry, am I talking too much?
No. What I want to do is, before, I get on just to try and summarize a little bit of what I'm hearing. Okay. So that you get a sense, and then you can, shift or whatever. So in a way, beyond, I'm going to go through more detail, but in a way what strikes me, one of the big things that strikes me is there's an enormous amount of enthusiasm, of resonance, there's really a lot of charge, a lot of, for you toward these issues.
Yeah.
And in these issues, there is a sense of, that it's about, in a way, kind of the meta envelope, container of what is life all about. And that sense that what life is all about, there is something that is unfolding.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's in a way almost the exact opposite of the clockmaker of the, rationalist philosophers or of perfection. But that sense of there is something, there's a force, there is something that's unfolding, and that something that is unfolding is not something that's outside of matter. It's not a spirit outside of matter. It's not a God outside of matter. But in a way, for you, what's really important, what feels a sense of, the awe that I hear and the enthusiasm, is about that sense that matter itself is divine. And it's not just matter in an inert way, because what you're talking about is a process, and you referred to the Big Bang and, that kind of stuff. So there is a sense of that energy that binds it all together, that makes it work.
That matter is, it can be converted to energy. There's an interaction between matter and energy.
So there's something about the matter, the energy, the force, the dynamic, the process of the world that is constantly unfolding. And it's not about right and wrong and perfect or not perfect, but it is. And there is something that's profoundly energizing to you about feeling that you're part of this unfolding, and that we all as human beings are agents of this divine, if you want, unfolding, but again, divine not being the opposite of matter. There is, that we're all part of this process.
And there's a purposefulness in it.
And there's a purposefulness in it.
Yeah. And the purposefulness has an interactive quality, that there's never just you might think that all that is singular, but all that it is comprised of is interactive. There's something about self and other. And when I say that, some Kabbalistic I'm not a Kabbalist. Kabbalistic notion, and I think I spoke about that in a early thing, is one of the most important notions in Kabbalah is there is a thing itself and its container. So that is shape, counter-shape, that there always has to be another. If there isn't another, then there's a sense of infinity. But when there's another, then we then are now not infinite, but we're then part of a community, part of a connective whole. And then we're connected to everything and everybody in that. Anyway,
So what I'm hearing there is something that's very important. We're not talking about, in a way, merging into some kind of emptiness or a glob, but there's a very strong awareness of a sense of relationality and of one thing relating to another, and one thing exists compared to its non-thing or to its container. So a sense of, that things exist in relationship.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And that means we're all connected. That everything has to do with connection. Anyway, that's that piece. But one more little step, and then I like talking about matter, because when I studied Latin, I began to look at the underlying organization of, when I was a kid, and matter and mater and mother are connected. So that matter is creative, not dead. That what we call matter that's what we're made out of, and our consciousness is a consequence of relations within matter, material things within our being. I just like that. And then when I say matter and matter, then it kind of elevates femininity again, that mother and matter are connected, and that means that there's love in matter, that there's a love of connection, because when things are connected, there's pleasure. I call that when there's shape and the appropriate counter shape, then the thing is complete. And then in human beings, you get a reward, the reward system in the brain. When we make the right connections, we get that feeling of pleasure and reward. I call that shape, counter shape, and then pleasure pop as a consequence. When we know that things fit the way they're supposed to fit, in an innate sense of, right, that's the way it should be.
Right.
Yeah. That's a felt sense, the rightness of things. And when you don't get it on a felt sense, that sense of relief or pleasure, then people go for addictions, and they try to get pleasure not from a relational base, but they try to get it through alcohol or drugs or smoking or whatever. Yeah, they try to release. Yeah.
So what you're talking about is that sense with shape, counter shape, is something that feels right, that fits well, but well from that period of you recognize, that's right, yeah,
and as you say that let me just jump in.
Yeah.
When you say that there's in the the sense of awe or wonder when things are just right.
Right.
I just have to put that.
So it brings us from there, in a way, back to what I noticed when I made the comment about, your sense of, what the sense of how it fits in the universe and matter and that process is that being part of it and living in a way as part of it.
Consciously
gives you that sense of and awe, so that it's not an intellectual construct, but it's a sense that it feels
feeling
right.
State. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's the rewards we get when we do it just right.
Yeah.
Our genes and our biology reward us when things are just right. And then we have a sense of hope and a sense of future and a readiness to move forward in life.
Yeah. So in a way, just as we're talking here, in a way we're coming to something where, there is a sense that's very well articulated, and philosophically articulated in terms of a principle and a concept of the world. But at the same time as that physical or rational articulation of, what, your sense of the universe is, there is also an embodied sense of, in a way, the locus of the experience is that as a human being, when you are in sync with that sense of feels right.
And that's exactly what we do when we do PBSP therapy. We do it all as a relational kind of thing, and that we then create the ahs that should have been there in our history that let us know how to look with hope into the future.
Right. And so in that sense, the therapy activity is a sense of reconnecting to the larger sense of the divine matter in the world and the larger process of the world.
And our genes are the carriers of that expectation of divine matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So in a way, it's encoded in us to be able to connect to that sense of rightness.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's and say therapy would be a corrective process for when there's a hitch in there.
Yeah, that's exactly what PBSP is all about.
Yeah.
To create in a symbolic setting a time machine where you go back and get the kind of connection and shape, counter shape, the counter shape to all of our needs met by the appropriate figure at the appropriate age. And you get that click of closure, which then lets you grow and be part of fulfilling those in the future. First, we have to have our own history fulfilled. Then that's what I see as the two fundamental forces in life: survival of the self and survival of the species. But beyond that, of course, is survival of the planet and the cosmos. But we can't pay attention properly to survival of the other until we've had enough of our own historical needs satisfied, our own genetic needs satisfied.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's PVSP Foundation. But then I'm not talking about the spirituality thing. But underneath, we're weaving that all through.
Yeah. No, but so I can see how the two are connected. There is a very strong underpinning over which the therapy is built.
Sure, yeah. Absolutely.
This recording is part of the Proactive Mindfulness podcast. We explore how to be more present and engaged in our lives and how to make lasting change. This is a contemporary take on mindfulness informed by embodied therapy and the polyvagal theory. You can find more articles and videos on the website proactivemindfulness.com.